Hello and welcome to December's 30 Days of Goddess practice. I am Molly Reamer with Bridges Grove and 30 Days of Goddess. And first, I would like to invite you to take a nice deep breath and settle yourself into your body, into where you are right now. And maybe pulling your attention inward and then extending your senses outward to what is around you. What is the landscape of your place like right now? What is happening on the earth? What elements do you sense? What bits of magic are there? What can you hear, see, and feel? So welcome to this month. Our theme for this month is deepening and discovery. In December, as I've referenced several other times in past resources, I personally feel this twin poles of the season, the call to retreat and the call to connect. So the withdraw, go into the cave, deepen inward, take time for reflection and stillness and pausing. And then there's kind of a cultural clamor to go, do, be, buy, but also a true heart desire to connect, to reach out, to do special things with friends and family, to hold celebrations and rituals, to connect. So anyway, the theme for this month is deepening and discovering, because I encourage us to take time, whatever time we can make and create, to deepen into that time of reflectiveness, into some stillness, into some time of consideration, into some evaluation, some life review, some goal setting, etc. So deepening and discovery. And so I have a brief new poem that I'd like to read to you before we get started with the other things I have to share. And it is this, and you may wish to lay a hand on your heart and listen. Let us not fear depth, but sink into it, exploring the oceanic, dialoguing with destiny, dancing with divinity, and softening into the sacred. Let us extend ourselves into the infinite, deepen into discovery, and inhale great breaths of the holy. We are here now, miracle enough in a universe of miracles. Let us be stunned by beauty, awake to enchantment, and alive with awe. So thank you so much for being here, for taking time out of your life to hopefully deepen into these practices and processes that will help you invite in more magic and enchantment, more stillness, more calm, more time for reflection, and more time for ordinary enchantment and everyday miracles. So thank you for being here and for taking part, whether you are new to the practice or whether you have been here since January of 2021, when we started. So as always, the practice homepage is the place to go for your printables for the month. There's a sampler pack of new printables for everyone. There's additional printables and daily graphics for members of the Goddess Magic community on Patreon. That's patreon.com/BridgesGrove. So the main practice homepage, which is always free and always accessible, is 30daysofgoddess.com. That's where you'll find videos, printables, practices, how-tos, 101s, etc. And it is there for you. And I encourage you to take advantage of it, to think of it almost as an online classroom in website form. And I also wanted to remind you that we have two forms of prayer book, both available in printable version from 30daysofgoddess.com, available in print version from bridgesgrove.etsy.com. We have the spiral bound prayer books, which are thematically connected to the month. And then we have the new pocket-sized prayer books, which are really small and easy to carry with you, to tuck into a little bag, and to have your prayer book process be a really simple and really short each day. So those are available to you too. The small prayer books are available on Amazon as well, and the spiral bound ones are available on lulu.com. This can be especially helpful if you are international, and also because the Etsy shop will be closed starting on December 16th until January. So the January prayer books are actually available right now too. So December and January are both there, so that you can get what you need before we are closed for the holidays. So anyway, I know I'm jumping around a little bit today. That is because that is this time of year. There's a lot of things on my mind and a lot of things to work on. And I'm sure that's how you feel too, in some way. So I'm going to keep this relatively brief, though I do have some deep topics to go into and some things to think about. So we'll see what we can do with what we have. The other thing I wanted to make sure to remind you of or mention is we do have the cut your own decks. So the printable, the sampler pack, and then the Goddess Magic expansions, those involve cards as well. But then we have the cut your own deck that is colorful, and that's available in the Etsy shop. And it's available as a digital file or an already printed file. And one of the things I really wanted to remind you of this month is that the cards themselves can form a very fulfilling and a very rewarding 30 Days of Goddess daily practice. You don't have to work on a book, so I've gone both ways. You know, the book itself is very powerful. It's a portable tiny temple. It's like a container for sacred experiencing. It's a place to hold this dialogues with divinity, making a space for the sacred and for the goddess and for yourself in your everyday. And it can also feel like a lot to some people. And so for people who would love to still be involved with 30 Days of Goddess but who feel like they're not doing enough, I wanted to remind you directly that the cards themselves are perfectly appropriate daily practice. You can have any of the decks, the cut your owns, the daily practice deck that we sell in the shop, the expansion packs, any of those things. You can mix and match, draw your cards, and that can be your daily practice. You're still participating in 30 Days of Goddess. The cards themselves are perfectly appropriate and really fulfilling daily practice on their own. So don't feel like you have to do a prayer book. The cards are here for you too, and they're available to you to enrich, enhance, and expand your practices and your possibilities. So the things I was thinking about, so I've got a whole bunch of topics actually for this deepening and discovering idea, deepening and discovery idea. And one is the idea of when do we stretch ourselves? When do we extend past our comfort zones and versus overdoing it? So I've been thinking about this a lot with my son. My oldest son is in college now. And I've been thinking about how he's been challenged this semester by having to write longer papers than he's used to, having to write a lot of papers. And as I've watched him rise to the occasion, I've seen his confidence increase, his confidence deepen and grow. And I've been thinking about how, like, it's good to challenge yourself, because he was afraid. He was worried about not being able to do it, about not being able to write the papers, about not being able to keep up. He came from being homeschooled, and he was, worried about keeping pace with kids that have been in the school system, and this is all new for him. And so feeling a little trepidation, feeling a little scared, and then rising to the occasion and doing it anyway. Like, that's so important that we stretch ourselves, that we push a little, that we push somewhat, that we extend past our edges and do the thing that's scary to us. And then at the same time, so that's growth versus like staying too small and comfortable. But then at the same time, there's forcing, there's pushing too much, there's trying too hard essentially and failing or burning yourself out. And so I'm curious this month about deepening into contemplation about what the difference between those two, because the stretching past your comfort zone and then seeing that you can do it feels good. Stretching too far so that you become stretched thin does not feel good. So there's kind of a discernment within us about which that is. So that's not totally related to this practice. It's just one of the thoughts that I was having on my mind. The other thing I was thinking about is paying attention to what is arising versus what you are putting effort into. So what is arising for you of its own? What is arising? What do you see around you? It might be the word of the year. It might be plans for 2023. It might be new ideas. It might be dreams that you're dreaming. It might be longings that you're listening to. But what's arising versus what is taking effort? And so effort isn't bad. Like, sometimes, good things come from pushing, from effort. But if we think in terms of what's arising versus what we're trying to make happen, what do you see? What do you experience? What do you feel? And then I also wanted to share a quote with you about longing and belonging. And this was actually shared by Lorita, who's part of the Creative Spirit Circle, but it comes from Tokopah Turner from the book Belonging. And so this is one of the things that's been on my mind too, is listening to our longing. You'll see that recur in the poems I write at this time of year, deepening into the cave of renewal, but also listening to our longing, dancing with desire, listening to longing. And to me, I find longing a really powerful word, a really potent word, a really captivating word. And I think we can learn a lot from listening to our longing. Longing goes deeper and is deeper and more heart-catching than just wanting something. So here's the quote. What if we aren't meant to do away with our longing at all? What if we are meant, as the poet John O'Donohue puts it, to let our absences enlarge our lives? What if longing itself is the calling homeward? Just as grief shows us what we love most, we can follow our longing into the meaningful life we so crave. A wise teacher once told me that the greatest spiritual practice he knows is to discover what you are most missing in your life and then give that thing away. In other words, take your meager scratch of a life, which knows too little about everything big, and make of it an offering. Where you long for the friend who calls only to find out if you're well, be that caller for another. Where you long for eloquent prayers to be made of everyday things, let your own clumsy words bless your meals out loud. Where you wish for ritual under the moons, be the one who holds the heartbeat of the gathering. Where you ache to be recognized, allow yourself to be seen. Where you long to be known, sit next to someone and listen for the apertures into what they love. Where you wish you felt necessary, give those gifts away. So let us listen to our longings, and then let us take them and see what we can give away from those. What we're longing for, perhaps we can create. What we're longing for, perhaps we can create. And then, likewise, I have another quote to share. This one about small things, and it is this. It's a quote from Brianna West that was shared by my friend Tracy on Facebook, but it's from Brianna West. You may believe that living life to the fullest is seeing every country in the world and quitting your job on a whim and falling recklessly in love, but it's really just knowing how to be where your feet are. It's learning how to take care of yourself, how to make a home within your own skin. It's learning how to build a simple life you're proud of. A life most fully lived is not always composed of the things that rock you awake, but those that slowly assure you it's okay to slow down, that you don't always have to prove yourself, that you don't need to fight forever or constantly want more, that it's okay for things to be just as they are. Little by little, you will begin to see that life can only grow outward in proportion to how stable it is inward, that if the joy is not in the little things first, the big things won't fully find us. So this is not saying to say stay small and never stretch and never grow, but it is saying that we have to start from the center. We have to start from where we are. We have to start from what is real. And one of the things I say with 30 Days of Goddess a lot is like, we don't have to make our lives any bigger or more special or magical than they already are. We start from where we actually are, not from how we imagine we could be. We start from where we are, and then we grow outward from there. That's what daily practice is about. It's about coming back to center again and again and again. It's about resettling into the sacred every single day and then growing outward from there. And so that is, so growth is good. So is being where your feet are. So is being where your feet are. And so speaking of feet, I have a little slightly gross story to share with you about my own foot. But there's a metaphor, there's a story, there's a lesson, there's a teaching in it. And that is that I have developed this weird crack in my heel. I have really kind of calloused heels, so apologies for the slight grossness. I have pretty calloused heels. I walk a lot, more than 5 miles a day. And so I always have this rough, dry skin on my heel. But this week, or this at the end of this month, one of those, that callousy kind of area cracked really deeply and made this bad, painful fissure in the back of my heel. And there was some eczema-ish looking things too, and it was really painful and was kind of actually making me limp when I was walking. There was cracked heel. And so first I was thinking about how this is kind of a metaphor for the things we neglect and then how they hurt us. You know, if we neglect what we need, then we start to hurt. And then I started putting on, I have some Burt's Bees cracked heel cream that I started putting on twice a day before I go to bed and in the morning. And, you know, with only 3 days of regularly applying the cream, the heel started to heal. And it literally would take less than probably takes 15 seconds for me to put the cream on. And when I put it on, I send my heel a little love, a little encouragement, a little appreciation for being this unappreciated part of my body. My poor heels. When do we spend much time thinking about our heels? So I send it a little love. I put the cream on, and really in 3 days, it was much better. And now it's almost completely, it's only been a week, and it's not bothering me hardly at all anymore. It's almost completely healed. And one of the things I thought is that giving yourself what you need doesn't have to take very much time. And when you do give yourself what you need, even these small bits, you heal. Things heal when they're given what they need, when they're given the time they need. And I feel like this is a metaphor for tending to our souls, for keeping space for the sacred and for ourselves in our own lives, is that when we take small time every day to tend to our own needs, to take care of ourselves, to pay attention to the invitation that is offered each day to step into the sacred, to keep company with the holy, to breathe the breath of grace, when we make that time, when we make those little bits of time, things heal. And when we neglect things, when we let neglect build up, things hurt. And so let that be a little healing message from my heel today. And so I wanted to share that. I apologize if that was a little too much, but I thought there was something to consider there. Is it doesn't take very much to give ourselves what we need. So let's bring that into center. Let's bring that into the front. Let's decide we're worth it. So I wanted to share that with you as well. And then the other thing is I wanted to briefly talk about 2023 plans, because here we are. There'll be the January practice update will come out at the end of December too, but we're coming up on the 3rd year of 30 Days of Goddess, which I just think is so amazing. From something that was supposed to last for 30 days, and now here we are almost at, we're passing 700 days. And is that right? I'm not doing the math quite right, but that's where we are. We're approaching 700 days. And so 2023 plans, I'm going to have an ongoing classroom. You'll get an invitation to join that class or access information for the classroom in the newsletter, which is accessed via 30daysofgoddess.com. Pretty much everything's on 30daysofgoddess.com. So if you ever get confused, go there first and look. And there'll be a classroom where the monthly updates, I'll start putting them in the classroom instead, so that you have like an easier way to come back to what you need instead of sorting around through email or looking different things. And that's where the printable files and like some of the core videos and things like that will be in the classroom. So that's going to be coming up at the end of December with an intention for it to be for 2023. And then the other thing I wanted to remind you is that we do have a live Simple and Sacred Circle on the second Friday of every month at 7 o'clock Central. The Zoom link to access that circle goes out in the 30 Days of Goddess newsletter as well. And the live circles are open to everybody. The replays are available exclusively to the Goddess Magic people on Patreon, which is patreon.com/goddessmagic. So anyway, those are the 2023 plans. I'm going to keep going with my books and the cards and the cut your owns and all those kinds of things, the monthly sampler pack, because I'm still finding this tremendously rewarding. It continues to deepen. It continues to grow. I continue to make new discoveries. And so I'm continuing to create and share, because I feel like there is something here that is worth sharing. And so we will continue into our 3rd year of shared daily practice. And again, you can dip and dive as works for you. You can change your practices as works for you. You can use tiny prayer books. You can use big prayer books. You can use cards. You can use oracle cards. You can use a blank notebook. You can participate in the way that suits you, that feeds your spirit. But ideally, that creates a space for yourself in your own life, that invites the goddess in, that it welcomes time with the sacred and accepts the invitation to sit with the sacred and design your own life, choose your own life, create your own life, and to keep company with joy. So I have a closing winter-themed poem to read to you, and I do welcome you to think about how you are deepening and discovering in the month to come, and what will help you deepen into your own awareness, into your own sense of the sacred, into clarity, into renewal, and into that time of restoration, contemplation, and reflection that we all need. It is now that we are invited to enter a time of rest and renewal, a time of restoration and replenishment. We are invited to dream new dreams and speak new spells, to bid farewell to old stories and to lay aside old habits and harms. We are invited to draw close to the crone of winter. Her hearth is warm, her tea is hot, and she has been through the fire. She has been through the breaking and rebuilding, the changing and renewing, the surrendering and the persevering. Let us listen to her now. Let us accept the cloak of stillness she drapes across our shoulders and step into the pause, fire-lit and flickering. And with our tea in our hands and understanding in our eyes, let us wait, listening to the faint soul song we thought we had forgotten, rise up from the sparks to glow once more in the cold night air. Thank you so much for being here, and may this practice nurture, nourish, and encourage you on your sacred path. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.